The galaxy had always believed it had humanity figured out. To the great civilizations gathered in the Galactic Council, Earth was small, young, and weak, barely a voice among empires that had spanned thousands of years. They looked at humans as an ambitious but reckless species, forever reaching beyond their limits. To them, Earth's place was clear: a minor world with no real influence, a race that should have remained quiet while the giants of the stars decided the future. But history has never been kind to assumptions. When the Council summoned Earth to its chamber of marble and crystal, most representatives expected nothing more than a plea for recognition. Some even smirked, amused at the thought of another small planet seeking attention it did not deserve. The hall buzzed with arrogance, whispers that humanity had no power, no fleets, no voice worth listening to. They were wrong, but none of them knew how wrong they were. The human delegation walked in silently. No grand gestures, no show of pride. Just calm, steady steps across the floor as though they carried no weight at all. Yet behind their eyes was something unshakable, something that unsettled even the most seasoned alien leaders. Humanity had a way of carrying itself, quiet, patient, unyielding, that did not fit the image the Council had painted. The Council speaker's voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and dismissive. He demanded to know why Earth had requested this audience. The humans gave no speech of grandeur, no boast. Instead, their words were simple, spoken in a tone so steady that it forced the room into silence. For centuries, you have underestimated us. You believed Earth fragile, disorganized, unprepared. But you were wrong. We did not reveal everything we are capable of. Today you will see why humanity bows to no one. The silence that followed was heavier than any threat. For a moment, the Council laughed. Laughter at the idea of humans speaking as though they were equals. Laughter at the suggestion that Earth had anything beyond what had already been observed: outdated ships, scattered colonies, and a population that barely stretched across the stars. But that laughter faltered the instant the first projection lit up in the chamber. Holographic displays rose into the air, showing fleets that no one had ever recorded. Massive vessels, sleek and angular, drifting silently through the dark between stars. Ships armed with weapons the Council could not immediately identify, ships that had never appeared in any registry, ships that should not exist. Murmurs erupted. Records were checked, intelligence reports re-examined. None of it made sense. According to every known analysis, Earth should not have possessed even a fraction of the resources required to build such power. And yet the proof shimmered before their eyes, undeniable. The speaker demanded answers. Where had humanity built these fleets? The humans did not answer directly. Instead, they let the silence stretch longer. One of them leaned forward, voice soft but edged with something steel-like. You thought we were naive. You thought we were children playing at war. But while you watched, we endured. While you dismissed us, we prepared. While you believed yourselves unchallenged, we built the means to defend ourselves. You see shadows. We see survival. The chamber filled with unease. Some members of the Council were outraged, shouting accusations of deceit, demanding proof these fleets even existed outside projection. Others sat in cold, unsettled silence, recognizing the calm conviction in the humans' words. It was not just the ships. It was the way they were revealed. Quietly, patiently, without the bluster of a conquering empire. The humans had not come here to boast, they had come to warn. And warnings carried weight. For the first time, the Great Council felt the ground shift beneath it. They were forced to reckon with the fact that a species they had dismissed had grown teeth in the dark. Not through open expansion, not through loud declarations, but in silence. In secret. In quiet determination born of survival. Humanity had hidden its power not because it lacked pride, but because it understood patience. Across the chamber, faces twisted with disbelief. Some were frightened, some furious, some calculating how this revelation would alter the balance of the galaxy. One representative leaned close to another and whispered a single thought that passed like a shadow through the entire assembly. If this is what they chose to show us, what have they still kept hidden? That thought clung to every mind present. The speaker tried to regain control, his voice sharp, demanding submission, threatening sanctions. But for the first time in centuries, his words sounded hollow. His threats rang weak. The weight of power was no longer in his hands. It rested with those who had carried it quietly all along. The human delegation said no more. They left the chamber the way they had entered, calm, unshaken, silent. They did not need to argue. They did not need to demand recognition. The images they left behind, the dread they planted in the hearts of those who had mocked them, did all the speaking necessary. Outside, rumors spread like wildfire. Across the galaxy, whispers moved faster than ships. Earth was not what it seemed. Earth had been underestimated. Humanity had hidden something vast, something dangerous, something that could shatter the illusion of galactic supremacy itself. And somewhere, far beyond the eyes of the Council, deep in the black silence of uncharted space, those hidden fleets waited. Engines asleep. Weapons quiet. Shadows among shadows. Patient as the species that had built them. The galaxy had always seen humanity as a spark, fragile and brief. But sparks can start fires. Sparks can burn through empires that believe themselves eternal. And now, for the first time, the galaxy realized the truth: humanity had never been weak. It had only been quiet. The Council was shaken, but none dared to admit aloud the fear growing in their hearts, that this unveiling was not the end of the story but only the beginning. Because what frightened them most was not what humanity had revealed. It was the question no one dared answer. What else is Earth still hiding? And in that unanswered question, the chamber fell silent once more. The Council chamber remained frozen long after the human delegation had gone. Representatives who had once laughed at Earth now sat in uneasy silence, exchanging glances that betrayed more fear than they cared to admit. The images of those hidden fleets still shimmered in their minds, ghostly reminders of a truth no one had expected. The galaxy was supposed to be mapped, its power known, its order certain. Yet somehow, Earth had changed that certainty with a single revelation. But how had they done it? That was the question everyone whispered once the humans were gone. For centuries, every species believed it had kept watch over humanity. Intelligence networks studied their colonies, their trade routes, even their weapons. The reports had been clear. Earth was limited. Earth was behind. Earth was struggling just to survive against the dangers of space. Yet tonight proved all those reports wrong. Somewhere in the shadows, humanity had been preparing in ways no one could have imagined. Whispers turned into arguments. Some members of the Council accused Earth of deception, claiming the fleets shown were nothing more than clever illusions. Others argued that no species would dare risk the Council's wrath with a bluff so bold. And then there were those who said nothing at all because they recognized something the others refused to see: the humans had not shown everything. What they revealed was only enough to unsettle, not enough to explain. Far from the chamber on Earth itself, the truth was far more complicated. Humanity had learned long ago that survival meant patience. The galaxy was not kind to the weak. Every new species that emerged was tested, watched, judged. Many had vanished before they could even find their footing. Humanity had seen this pattern, and rather than step into the open, it had chosen silence. While the galaxy looked elsewhere, Earth had built carefully. Shipyards hidden in asteroid belts. Research facilities buried under the surface of barren moons. Fleets assembled in regions of space so empty that no one ever bothered to look. The decision had not been easy. For decades, leaders on Earth argued whether secrecy was worth the cost. Entire generations worked in silence, pouring effort into projects that the rest of humanity would never see. Ordinary citizens thought Earth was stretched thin, always struggling to keep its colonies alive. Few knew that beneath the surface, beneath the hardships, something far greater was taking shape. Humanity's true strength was not in its fleets or weapons. It was in its will to endure, to build even when no one believed in them, to prepare for the day when silence would no longer be enough. That day had come. But what unsettled the Council most was not the existence of hidden fleets. It was the reason humanity had chosen to reveal them now. For centuries, Earth had kept its power in the dark. Why break the silence? Why risk exposure? Some feared the answer was simple: that humanity was no longer content with survival, that it now sought to claim its place among the stars by force. Others wondered if something else had happened, something so dangerous that even the quietest species could no longer afford to hide. The truth spread slowly in fragments. Rumors of strange disturbances along the edge of known space. Entire trade convoys vanishing without trace. Reports of signals no one could identify, shadows that moved where no ships should be. Many had dismissed these stories as accidents, pirates, or sensor malfunctions. But when the humans spoke in the Council, those rumors suddenly felt heavier, more real. If Earth had revealed its hidden strength now, perhaps it was because something even greater was stirring beyond the stars. Among the human delegation, the weight of that decision lingered. They had not wanted to show their hands so soon. Every hidden ship, every secret station had been meant for the long game, for survival against whatever the galaxy might bring. But circumstances had forced them forward. They could not risk the Council mistaking their quiet for weakness any longer. The galaxy needed to know that Earth was not defenseless, that humanity was not prey to be toyed with. Yet still they revealed only a fraction of what they held. Back in the chamber, one of the older council members, whose empire had lasted for millennia, leaned heavily on his staff and whispered to no one in particular, "This changes everything. If they have hidden this much, then how long have we been blind?" His words carried no accusation, only fear. Because if one young species could rise in silence and shake the balance of the galaxy, then what else lay unseen in the dark? For the humans, that was the point. They did not seek immediate war or conquest. They did not need to. Fear was more powerful than any weapon. A single seed of doubt could shatter the illusion of supremacy that the Council had built for ages. And humanity knew that illusions, once broken, could never be repaired. On distant colonies, ordinary people continued their lives without knowing the storm their leaders had unleashed. Families struggled, children dreamed of stars, workers toiled in mines and factories that fed into the hidden projects. Few realized that the sacrifices of their daily lives had already changed the galaxy forever. Humanity's strength had never been in the power of a single weapon, but in the endurance of billions who refused to give up. Yet even as Earth stood taller than ever before, questions remained. What exactly had they built in the silence of uncharted space? The Council had seen ships, yes, but ships alone did not explain the confidence in the humans' voices. There was something else, something unspoken, hidden still in the dark. And that silence weighed heavier than the fleets themselves. The galaxy now found itself holding its breath. Some species rushed to strengthen their defenses, convinced humanity would strike. Others sought secret alliances, hoping to either gain favor with Earth or protect themselves against it. And through it all, Earth remained silent once more, offering no explanation, no reassurance. They had revealed just enough to shake the galaxy, and then left it drowning in uncertainty. But among those who paid close attention, one truth began to surface. Humanity had never fought for domination, only survival. If they had revealed their fleets now, it was not because they wanted war, it was because something was coming. Something the Council was too blind to see. And though the Council debated, argued, and accused, no one could shake the image of those human ships drifting in silence, engines cold, waiting for the day they would be called upon. They were not built to boast. They were built for when survival demanded nothing less. What no one knew, not yet, was whether that day was closer than anyone dared to imagine. The illusion of galactic supremacy had cracked. The question was no longer whether humanity had power, it was what they intended to do with it. And as the chamber emptied, as the stars outside continued their eternal silence, one unspoken truth settled deep into every heart: humanity had changed the game forever. And the galaxy was only beginning to understand the cost. The silence after Earth's revelation did not last long. Across the galaxy, whispers turned into storms. Entire star systems buzzed with fear, rumors spreading faster than any ship could travel. Traders swore they had seen shadows of strange vessels drifting at the edge of known space, silent giants that vanished when approached. Colonies began to panic, wondering if the humans were preparing to strike. The Council itself fractured, old alliances tested by doubt. What had once been a stable balance of power now cracked with every passing day. In the Great Chamber, debates dragged into the long hours of the night. Some demanded Earth be sanctioned, stripped of its fleets before they grew bolder. Others argued for caution, fearing that provoking humanity could awaken something far worse. But beneath all the shouting and threats was a current of dread no one could put into words. For centuries the Council had believed it ruled unchallenged, that no young world could rise against it. Now, with a single quiet move, humanity had shaken that illusion. And still Earth said nothing more. The human delegation returned home, leaving only unease behind. They gave no further statements, no clarifications. Every unanswered question became fuel for fear. What else had they hidden? What weapons lay buried beneath their silence? The lack of answers was worse than any threat, because it forced the galaxy to imagine what might be waiting in the dark. But Earth was not at peace either. Ordinary citizens began to sense that something had shifted. News of the Council meeting spread quickly, distorted with every retelling, until it became legend. Some humans felt pride, believing their world had finally claimed its place among the stars. Others felt only fear, worried that the revelation would bring the wrath of countless empires upon them. Families whispered late at night, wondering if their children would grow up in peace or in the shadow of war. Behind closed doors, leaders debated the same questions that haunted the Council. Had they revealed too much? Or not enough? The decision had been forced upon them, yet now there was no going back. Humanity had shown its strength and the galaxy would never forget it. The tension built with every passing week. Fleets belonging to older empires began to move closer to human space, their presence explained as routine patrols, though everyone knew the truth. Probes vanished without explanation near Earth's colonies. Border stations reported unidentified signals, sometimes only faint echoes, sometimes bursts of data that made no sense at all. It felt as though the galaxy was holding its breath, waiting for something to break. And then came the first disappearance. A convoy traveling from a neutral world to the outer edge of Council space simply vanished. No distress call, no wreckage, only silence where dozens of ships should have been. Panic spread quickly, and suspicion turned immediately toward humanity. To many it was proof that Earth had grown too bold. But to others the disappearance carried a different weight. The way it happened, so clean, so absolute, was unlike anything humanity had ever been accused of before. Something else was moving. Something neither the Council nor Earth could control. For the first time, the galaxy began to see the possibility that humanity's revelation had not been an act of pride, but a warning. The Council called another meeting. The chamber was louder this time, voices sharpened by fear. Accusations flew across the hall, demands for Earth to explain itself. But when the humans spoke, their words were colder than before. Asterisk, we are not your enemy. But we will not stand helpless while the galaxy ignores what is coming. You sense it. You hear it in your borders, in your silence. Do not mistake us for the threat. Prepare yourselves, or you will not survive what waits beyond. Asterisk. The words left the chamber trembling. Humanity had not just admitted to its strength, it had pointed toward something greater, something hidden in the dark. And yet no explanation came. No detail, no proof. Only silence. That silence ate at every mind. Was humanity bluffing, trying to push the Council into fear? Or had they seen something the others had missed? Old rivalries reignited, alliances splintered, and suspicion grew like fire. The more the galaxy doubted, the more dangerous the tension became. But Earth did not waver. Its fleets remained hidden, its colonies quiet. The calmness itself became terrifying, because it suggested that humanity was prepared in ways no one else was. Every other empire scrambled, but Earth stood still. Waiting. Watching. Then, late one night in Council space, alarms screamed across a listening post at the edge of the stars. An entire sector lit up with signals no one could understand. Patterns of movement that defied explanation, energy bursts unlike any weapon known. By the time reinforcements arrived, the post was gone. Nothing remained but scattered fragments drifting through the void. The Council tried to contain the news, but whispers leaked as they always did. Something was out there. Something powerful enough to erase an outpost in minutes. And humanity's calm warning now echoed louder than ever. The tension reached its breaking point. Fleets began to mobilize not only against the unknown threat, but against Earth itself. Fear twisted into suspicion, suspicion into anger. Many believed the humans had orchestrated everything, that they had created the illusion of danger only to rise as the galaxy's savior. Others believed humanity had seen the truth first, and that ignoring them would lead to destruction. Both sides prepared for the worst. On Earth, leaders stood in quiet war rooms, staring at maps of the galaxy filled with moving fleets, shifting borders, and unanswered questions. Their voices were steady, but their eyes carried the weight of decisions that could shape the fate of billions. For all their strength, humanity was still walking a knife's edge. Reveal too much, and they risked provoking the Council into uniting against them. Reveal too little, and the galaxy would remain blind to the greater danger. The suspense grew unbearable. Every passing day felt like the calm before a storm. Ships disappeared, signals flared, and fear spread through every world, every colony, every gathering hall. And then, without warning, it happened. The skies above a distant colony lit with fire. Sensors screamed with readings no one had ever recorded before. Fleets scrambled, messages cut off mid-sentence, and for a single instant the galaxy realized the truth. The storm humanity had warned of was no longer approaching. It was here. And the question that gripped every heart was the same, the one the Council had feared since the first day the humans revealed their power. Would Earth's quiet strength be enough? The first colony fell silent in less than an hour. Entire cities blinked out, their lights extinguished as if swallowed by the void itself. The Council rushed to respond, scrambling fleets and activating defenses, but the more they tried to react, the clearer it became. This was not a war they understood. The enemy did not send demands, did not reveal ships in the way anyone expected. What little was seen came as flickers on scanners, shadows sliding between stars, and bursts of impossible energy that melted shields like they were paper. The galaxy had always believed itself untouchable, but now entire worlds whispered in fear. For the humans, this was the moment they had tried to prepare for. Yet even as leaders spoke in calm, measured tones, their hearts raced with the same fear as everyone else. They had built in silence, hidden their strength, all for this. But what faced them now was unlike anything they had encountered before. It was not just stronger, it was different, as though it followed rules the galaxy itself had never known. The Council demanded humanity move its fleets forward, to prove its strength and defend the worlds under attack. But Earth remained silent again. Not out of arrogance but out of calculation. Moving too soon meant risking everything. And so the silence stretched while colonies vanished one by one. Then came the twist that shattered what little certainty remained. A council investigation revealed fragments of wreckage near one of the fallen outposts. When analyzed, the energy signatures inside did not match the unknown enemy. They matched humanity. The chamber erupted in chaos. Voices rose, sharp and accusing, pointing fingers at Earth. The council speaker himself shouted across the hall, demanding to know the truth. Were the humans not warning of a threat but orchestrating it? Had the fleets they revealed been only a distraction, while their hidden forces struck in the shadows? The suspicion that had lingered for weeks now exploded into open fury. And for the first time humanity seemed cornered. But the truth was far more dangerous. In a private meeting, human envoys revealed what their leaders had known but kept hidden. Those wreckage fragments were indeed human. Pieces of ships that had gone missing long before the Council even noticed the enemy's existence. Vessels humanity had lost contact with years ago, written off as accidents in the void. Only now the fragments showed a horrifying possibility. The enemy was not simply attacking. It was using what it captured. The fleets humanity had built in secret were powerful, yes, but they were also vulnerable. If even a handful had been taken and twisted into something unrecognizable, then the threat was worse than anyone had imagined. The galaxy was not just fighting a new force, it was fighting something that had learned from humanity itself. The Council refused to believe it at first. The idea that the unknown enemy could bend captured ships to its will was too terrifying to accept. But the evidence was undeniable. The twisted wreckage was real, and the implications sank like stone into the hearts of every representative. The stakes had changed. This was no longer about whether humanity's strength was enough. It was about whether their very own creations might be turned against them. In the streets of human colonies, whispers spread. Families looked to the sky, wondering if the fleets that had been built to protect them might return not as guardians, but as monsters. Children asked questions their parents could not answer. Pride and fear mixed in equal measure. Pride that humanity had built something so formidable, fear that it could be taken and used for destruction. The Council seized the chance to turn suspicion into leverage. They declared that humanity must place all its fleets under Council command, arguing that only united leadership could face this new enemy. But behind their polished words lay fear and perhaps jealousy. They wanted control of what humanity had hidden, desperate to hold on to the illusion of supremacy that was slipping from their grasp. Earth refused. Quietly, firmly, without anger they refused. Their fleets had been built not for conquest but for survival. And survival could not be trusted to those who had mocked them for centuries, who had dismissed their warnings until it was too late. This refusal set the galaxy on edge. The Council threatened sanctions, threatened force, even as the enemy crept closer. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy faced not one war but two, the shadow of an unknown invader and the growing fracture between Earth and the Council. The tension became unbearable. Armadas moved into position not toward the enemy but toward human space. Sensors recorded fleets gathering, weapons armed, their commanders torn between fear of the invader and suspicion of the humans. Every second brought the galaxy closer to disaster. And yet humanity did not flinch. They did not bow. Their envoys spoke in the same calm voices they always had, but behind those words was something sharper. A quiet strength born of centuries of being underestimated. They told the Council a simple truth. You fear us because we hid our strength. You fear what we might do with it. But what you should fear is what happens if we fall. If our fleets are broken, if our strength is gone, then the galaxy will have nothing left to stand against what is coming. But their warning was drowned by the sound of fleets arming themselves. The Council could not bring itself to trust Earth. Pride and fear blinded them to the truth. And then, on the edge of known space, a signal cut through the dark. Not from the Council. Not from Earth. From the enemy. It was not a language, not words. It was mimicry. The signal carried patterns unmistakably human, distorted, twisted like an echo pulled through something alien. It was the voice of humanity itself, stolen and reshaped, broadcast back into the stars. The galaxy froze. The revelation was clear and horrifying. The enemy was not only consuming ships. It was consuming voices, identities, pieces of entire species. It was learning, adapting, becoming something that was not alien but a reflection, an endless mirror of everything it devoured. The fear that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever known. And in that moment, as the mimicry of human voices echoed across the void, the question became unbearable. Was Earth the galaxy's greatest hope, or its first victim? The echo of human voices twisted into alien static spread across the galaxy like a wound. Entire worlds stopped to listen, their people frozen as the sound of something familiar, something stolen, reverberated through the stars. It was not just a signal. It was a challenge, a declaration that the enemy was no longer simply arriving. It was already among them. The council had no choice. For all their suspicion, for all their anger, they could not deny what stood before them. Fleets scrambled, entire empires rushing to the edge of known space, bracing for a confrontation they barely understood. But still, their ships moved in fractured formations, mistrust between them as dangerous as the enemy itself. And at the center of it all, humanity's fleets waited in silence, engines humming with quiet power. The galaxy's eyes turned toward Earth. Some prayed the humans had been telling the truth, that their hidden strength would be enough. Others hoped secretly that Earth would fall so the illusion of supremacy could be rebuilt. But in the end it did not matter what they hoped. The enemy had arrived. The first clash was unlike any battle ever fought. Council fleets unleashed firepower that could shatter moons, but the enemy adapted, shifting in ways sensors could barely track. Energy beams bent, shields collapsed, and entire cruisers were torn apart by weapons no one could comprehend. The enemy did not fight like a fleet, it moved like a living storm, consuming everything in its path. Then the humans moved. From the dark came ships the council had never seen before, colossal vessels with hulls layered in strange alloys, weapons burning with energy that pierced through the storm. They did not fight with chaos but with precision. Every strike was measured, every movement part of a pattern so carefully built it looked almost like a dance. Where council ships fell in disorder, humanity's fleets held the line. For the first time the storm faltered. The galaxy watched in disbelief as Earth's fleets pushed forward, weapons carving paths through the enemy. The quiet strength that had been mocked for centuries now roared into fire. Humanity had not lied. They had prepared and they had prepared for this. But the enemy was not defeated so easily. As the battle raged, more signals erupted, this time not only human. Twisted echoes of other species filled the void, voices of long-vanished civilizations woven into the storm. The truth struck with terrifying clarity. This was not the first time the enemy had come. It had been here before, long before the council, devouring, adapting, becoming stronger each time. Humanity was only the latest piece of its endless reflection. The council panicked. Fleets broke, worlds screamed, and leaders shouted over comms, demanding Earth reveal everything it had left. And then humanity did. Hidden deep within their formation, a single ship emerged. Larger than any vessel in known space, it carried no banners, no insignia. Its hull was scarred from years in silence, its systems glowing with energy few could comprehend. It was not a weapon of conquest, it was a weapon of survival. A ship built not to rule the stars but to protect them. Its first strike shattered the void. Energy tore through the storm, ripping enemy vessels apart in a blinding cascade. The storm screamed in stolen voices, twisting, reforming, but the humans did not yield. Wave after wave of fire poured into the darkness, holding the line where no one else could. The galaxy realized in that moment the truth they had refused to see. Humanity's quiet power had never been about pride. It had been about endurance, about sacrifice, about carrying the weight of survival when no one else believed it mattered. But even as the tide turned, the final twist revealed itself. The storm did not retreat. Instead it split. One half surged forward, still raging against the fleets. The other half shifted, pulling back, not in defeat but in calculation. And the signals it carried changed. No longer echoes of the past. They were voices of the present. Voices of human ships still fighting. Somewhere, somehow, the enemy had begun to copy not only old wrecks, but living vessels, twisting their signals into perfect reflections. On the battlefield, ships faced mirrors of themselves, human against human, steel against steel, voices of pilots screaming as their own words were thrown back at them. The council despaired. But humanity did not break. Through the chaos, their leaders spoke with calm that cut through the storm. Asterisk, if it wants to mirror us, then let it. Because it will never understand what it cannot copy. It cannot take what makes us human. Asterisk. And so the fleets pressed harder, not as scattered ships, but as one. Humans fought not just with weapons, but with sacrifice, with choices no enemy could anticipate. Crews rammed their mirrored doubles, tearing both into fire. Pilots dove into impossible maneuvers, forcing the storm to follow and collapse into traps. Every loss cut deep, but every loss carved a path forward. At the heart of the battle, the great human vessel charged its final strike. Its energy built until the void itself trembled. The storm screamed in stolen voices, but the humans did not falter. They unleashed everything at once, a torrent of fire so bright it seared across the stars, tearing the storm into fragments. Silence followed. The Council's fleets floated in disbelief, battered, broken, but alive. The storm was gone, scattered into pieces too small to fight. Humanity had done what no one else could. They had shattered the illusion of galactic supremacy, and with it, the illusion of their own weakness. But the victory carried a shadow. As the humans pulled back their fleets, as silence returned to the stars, fragments of signals still echoed faintly. Not alien this time. Not stolen. Human. Clear, sharp, and impossibly distant. Voices calling from somewhere beyond the edge of the galaxy. The enemy had not been destroyed. It had learned. And somewhere in the dark it was waiting still. The Council, shaken to its core, finally understood. The balance of power was broken. The galaxy would never be the same. And at the center of it all stood humanity, quiet no longer but burdened with a truth no one could deny. They were not just survivors. They were the shield standing between the galaxy and the endless dark. And the question that lingered, unspoken, was the one that would haunt every world until the stars themselves went silent. When the storm returned, would even humanity be enough? The chamber was quieter than it had ever been. Not a single voice rose in protest. Not a single delegate dared break the silence. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was without words. Earth had shown its strength, not with reckless destruction, but with patience, with control, with a quiet power that no one had expected. What had been revealed could not be hidden again. Every leader present knew it, and every species watching from across the stars understood what it meant. The illusion of galactic supremacy was gone. The humans had carried themselves without arrogance, without cruelty. They had not gloated, nor sought to humiliate. They had simply peeled back the curtain and let the truth stand on its own. And in that truth, every council member saw the same thing. The galaxy had been fragile all along, built on assumptions of power, on the belief that strength belonged only to those who spoke the loudest. Humanity had changed that belief in a single day. On Earth there was no celebration. There were no parades, no cheering crowds filling the streets. Instead, the people moved with a kind of quiet pride, knowing they had secured their future not by crushing others, but by showing restraint. The hidden fleets that had stunned the galaxy did not return to orbit in triumph, but slipped silently back into their stations, waiting as they always had for the day they would be needed. Humanity did not need to brandish its weapons now, the galaxy already knew. For those who had lived their lives under the shadow of the Council's power, the message spread like fire. Species who had been silenced began to speak again. Civilizations that had been ignored found new strength in their voices. The knowledge that Earth had stood against the Council's dominance and not bowed gave others hope. Across the stars, whispers grew into waves of change. Humanity had not just shattered the illusion of supremacy, they had reminded the galaxy that no one species could decide the fate of all. Back in the Council chamber, some leaders shifted uneasily in their seats, calculating what this meant for their future. Old alliances built on fear and control no longer seemed unshakable. And though many would not admit it, relief crossed their faces. If Earth had wished to rule, they could have seized it then. But they hadn't. They had shown strength, but also mercy, and in that mercy, others found a chance to hope. Among the humans present, there was no smile, no arrogance. Only a steady gaze that carried both warning and promise. They had not come to conquer, but neither would they be conquered. They had not come to silence others, but they would not be silenced themselves. Humanity had made their stance clear without firing a single shot. When the meeting ended, the delegates filed out in silence, their eyes lowered, their thoughts heavy. Outside the chamber, the human delegation stood together, watching the galaxy's leaders walk away one by one. None of them spoke for a long time. At last, one of them whispered what they all felt: now they know. Back on Earth, the skies seemed brighter, though nothing had changed. Families went about their lives, children ran through the streets, people worked, dreamed, built, and lived as they always had. Yet beneath the ordinary rhythm of human life, there was a sense of something new. The galaxy finally understood what humanity had always carried within them: resilience, patience, and a strength that did not depend on domination. For centuries, Earth had been underestimated, dismissed as a world too small, too fragile to matter. But history had turned. Humanity had written a new chapter, one where they were no longer overlooked but remembered as the species who refused to bow, the species who shattered illusions with quiet resolve. As time passed, stories of that day spread farther than the Council could contain. Traders carried whispers to the outer colonies. Explorers shared the tale in distant systems. And everywhere it was told, there was the same reaction: a pause, a moment of silence, and then a shift in the eyes of those listening. If humans could stand against the Council, maybe they too could stand against the weight that had kept them down. Earth did not become the center of the galaxy. They did not demand submission or tribute. They simply continued on, preparing as they always had, watching, listening, ready. The galaxy learned that power was not always loud, not always obvious. Sometimes, the greatest strength lay in patience, in waiting, in never showing your hand until the moment it mattered most. And yet, as peace settled like a thin layer of calm, there was still something unspoken in the air. The Council had been shaken, but not broken. Whispers of unease stirred in the shadows of their chambers. Plans were being made, strategies woven in secret. They would not forget what they had seen, and some would not forgive. Humanity had not ended the struggle. They had only begun a new chapter of it. But for now the lesson lingered. Across the stars, people remembered the moment when Earth's quiet power stripped away the grand illusion of supremacy. They remembered how it felt to see truth unveiled, to see the impossible become undeniable. That memory would not fade. On the night after the Council session, as dawn stretched over the oceans of Earth, an old man stood at the edge of a cliff, watching the horizon. He knew that history had shifted. He knew that generations to come would live in a galaxy that finally saw humanity for what it truly was. Not conquerors. Not victims. Survivors. Builders. Dreamers. Fighters when they had to be, but never destroyers without cause. He closed his eyes, breathing in the salt air, and whispered a quiet truth that carried more weight than any fleet: "We've shown them who we are." And with that, the galaxy turned, forever changed. Humanity had not sought to break the Council, but in standing unyielding, they had broken something deeper: the lie of invincibility. And in the silence that followed, the stars seemed just a little brighter, as if even they had been waiting for this moment. The story of Earth would not be forgotten. It would be carried in whispers, in songs, in lessons told to children who would one day step into the stars themselves. The galaxy had seen humanity's strength, and now it would never be able to look away. The quiet power of Earth had spoken louder than any weapon, and in the end, that was what shattered the illusion that had held the galaxy for so long.